everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tendent, the micro podcast featuring people you need to know in dentistry. Today, we have someone who is probably pretty recognizable already, but Dr. Kristine Grazioso is here. Not only is she a fantastic pediatric dentist with a massive practice on the South Shore of Boston, but she's one of the founding members and current vice president, I think, of the Alliance of Independent Dentists. And Chris, I could talk to you on 1,000 topics, but really want our audience to learn about AID. So welcome to the Tendent podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
We're honored to have you. So let's start off logically. Kristine, I know you for a long time, and we'll leave it at that. But AID, the Alliance of Independent Dentists, has been around for a while, but in the past 2 years, you guys have had explosive growth and an annual symposium and lots of continuing education. Could you give us a roundabout how it got started, how you became one of the founders, and what was the tipping point? What made you say we need to unify?
Well, it started in 2017 when in our state of Massachusetts, we every dentist in the state received this surprise contract from the largest dental insurance company in the state. And it was an egregious contract. It was forcing everybody to be a PPO provider. All of us who had been premier providers for our whole careers, it was 20 years I had been a premier provider. And they were basically saying, if you don't sign this, then you're going to be kicked out of the network. Everyone has to be a PPO provider. And those of us who read it and paid attention were like, wait a minute. They're basically telling us in the next year, we're all taking a 30% fee discount that we never had wanted to. We were already, taking 15, 20, 25% discounts, even as premier providers. And it was basically just like slashing everything and changing, every dental office's life. So those of us who really paid attention, we fought this at the Division of Insurance when our state association was kind of unwilling to and was going along with it. And over 2 years, we fought this. We became a nonprofit, had legal advisement, did everything above board so that we could do this without a problem. And for the next, I would say 3 years, so a total of 5 years, we did a lot of state lobbying. We put forth a few bills in our state, and we went as far as we thought we could go with those issues. And 2 or 3 years ago, we decided it was time to change our name. We weren't always the Alliance of Independent Dentists. We changed it to the Alliance of Independent Dentists, and we decided to take it national. And what we were looking at then, beyond insurance, was this whole idea of turning our entire profession corporate. We use the history of medicine, our physician brothers and sisters, and all patient care as why we don't think dentistry should go that same route. We believe in independent private practice. We think it's best for everyone who works in the dental field, including dentists, of course, but it's also best for patients long term. Family-owned private practice is the way we see healthcare should be. And so we just decided to take it national, make a push to get all states involved and to be the voice of independent practice, because the corporate voice, the DSO voice, the private equity-backed voice is loud, and they don't want anyone talking about it. So it's been a little bit of an uphill battle, but we feel that we're now getting some traction.
And that voice, the DSO and private equity voice, it's not just loud. It's just it's where we are, right? The industry is for good or bad or whatever. It's kind of just where for the last 10 years, so much focus, maybe is the word I'm looking for. The focus has been on that. So this is grassroots, right? So how do you compete with it? And I guess you go state by state, practice by practice, and you try to get people together in a way, right? So how is it different? One of the first things I was like, okay, well, how's it different than like a GPO, right? Like a group purchasing organization was sort of the beginning of things like this, right? It was like, hey, this is how we can compete with bigger practices. Explain how kind of it's evolved, and it's not just that, obviously, but there's probably some component to that, right? But it's more about just sharing knowledge and getting people together better than a Facebook group would do.
Well, you just nailed it. But first, what I want to say, what's different about the whole GPO and this whole thing, oh, let's compete on getting better pricing. If dentists would stop and look, products and dental supplies are 4% of your overhead. It's not that big of a deal. It's not where the focus should be. So what that the DSOs get some better pricing. We can fight for it, and it's nice to have some buying groups. And we do try to get deals in our association for the dentist, but it's not our primary focus. Our primary focus is exactly what you said, education. Educating dentists and eventually the public. That's a huge piece of this. Educate the public on why they should want to go to a private practice dentist, why they should prefer that. So once we get enough members of our organization, then we will raise the funds to be able to go do the proper advertising. Right now, our main way that our outreach is working is, believe it or not, social media and podcasts like this, and hosting our symposium. We had our first national symposium last year, huge success. We have the second one in the works for next March 19th to 21 in Naples, Florida. And we have amazing powerhouse speakers. And it's all about educating our colleagues about why you should want to stay independent and be a private practicing dentist. We don't hold anything against the dentists who have chosen to work in a DSO. No problem. If that's what works for your life, that's fine. We're not against you. We're not even against those dentists who have sold to DSOs, but we're trying to educate about why that's not the best route for you, and certainly not for patients. So that's what it's all about. And you hit it on the head. We're grassroots. We're a nonprofit. We are never going to be able to compete with the big money from private equity. It's just, there's no way to do it. It's just like we can't compete with the big insurance money. So we have to do it in this methodology. And it's, step by step, grassroots efforts work. And instead of just caving in and saying, oh, well, the money talks and we're just going to have to do this, we said we're not going down without a fight. And frankly, I think the tide is turning. I think if you start listening to everyone, it's turning. There's not that big money to be made that was making dentists, the greed part was coming out like, oh, well, I want all that money, right? That's the whole motivation. There's really no other motivation. So.
Right. How do you balance that? And I want to jump in really quick, Mike, because we're on this point, and then you can go to the next one. Let me ask you this, was your mother or father a dentist?
No.
Okay. If they were, let's assume they were. Let's pretend like they were. They likely sold their practice to an associate, right? Or somebody, who got out of dental school that lived nearby. I don't know. And it was dentist to dentist, and it was you kind of knew what it was, and you were going to sell it, and you're going to make some money and everything. These days, it's harder and harder to sell to a dentist because of the private equity and the money that's in it. So how do you balance, how does a dentist, now I'm not a dentist, so I'm never going to have to sell my practice. So how does a dentist balance wanting to be fiercely independent, which I think most do, most want to do that, but then realizing at the end, it's sort of like they chip away and you go, all right, I could sell my practice for $1.5 million to my associate, or I could sell it to $4 million, and I'm just making up numbers, to private equity. How does a dentist walk that line, knowing which way to go?
Well, this is an easy question because that's not true. That's actually not true. So
I made it up. So it's
you made it up.
Yeah.
I think at the beginning it was true. They got big influencers. They got practices. They were making these multiples. There was that potential, and early on, some people made a lot of money. Nowadays, I'm going to give you my example, and I'm going to use made up numbers too, because I don't want to say, but I have a fee for service pediatric dental practice. I did go, once that happened with that insurance company back in 2017, I made a plan to get out of all participation with insurance, and I went out of network. I am not the main clinician in my office. I have associates, and I still manage the practice. I'm in charge. I do work some, but my by me owning the practice and continuing to make a living off of it, I will do far better than if I sold it and had to work 5 years for the DSO and, produce a certain amount and live up and not have any control anymore. I think the balance, I think there is a lot of disinformation and misinformation being told to dentists, because in the old days, as you mentioned, dentists weren't looking to make a killing when they sold the practice. You were using your practice to make a good living along the way, to invest properly, to be ready to retire. We weren't
And do
looking for
good. And do good. And do good
and just
and, help people.
take care of patients. Yeah. Like that's my whole thing. I'm all about relationships with my community, which includes all of my patients, relationships with my staff, relationships with my colleagues. And that piece is so important and not talked about when people talk about selling to the corporate environment, right? They're like, whatever. I have made it my mission to avoid having to sell to a corporation because I believe in leaving a legacy practice behind. And I have to bring this up because there's a big falsehood out there that says, oh, larger practices, if they're worth a few $1,000,000, they can't sell to private practice. It's not true. I know plenty of people who have sold their $3 and $4 million practice to private dentists. And if it's not just one dentist, 2 people can buy it. If you're making that money, eventually you're going to pay off that loan, right? Especially if you were an associate there and you know the practice and all of that. So that's a great way to sell to a private practice, is have associates that might want to buy it in the end. And also maybe not have to get top dollar because you've done well along the way.
Maybe let me, and I don't want to total transparency, and this, Kristine, this isn't a DSO bashing situation. All provider, it's about getting more dentistry. We all know, which is absolutely necessary in today's environment. We worry about people having access to care. So, at my core philosophy, we need more dentistry. But you have really, and Dr. Tanzi and the other board members have really had exponential growth by unifying with AID. I laud the work that you've done. I got to be a keynote speaker at one of your educational events. And I mean, I had really sharp, from right out of dental school to I've been in practice 40 years in the audience, really congealing around the fight to keep their independence and pass that on. What has been the response? And I don't know the answer to this question, but I want you to be 100% Kristine here. What has been the response or support of national organizations like the ADA or state associations with the rapid growth of AID?
They seem to be afraid of us, which is so silly.
Right.
They're
afraid of everything.
Afraid. They think we want to replace them. We don't want to replace the ADA. I have no desire to be the ADA to replace them. We want to be the voice of the independent dentist, which, by the way, is 80% of dentists, right? The ADA, their big line, and every state organization is they need to represent all dentists. That means public health dentists, DSO employed dentists, so employed dentists, academicians. You know what? They all have their own little association. There wasn't something that represented just independent dentists. And frankly, we didn't need it 20 years ago because almost everyone was. Now that this ball is rolling and it's, again, the big money got into our associations, got into our dental schools, right? So that's our biggest challenge. We are now working really hard to get into the dental schools and to talk to dental students. That's probably the most important thing because frankly, this fight is about them. This fight is for the future. It's not about me. I can go off and retire and move on, but this is about the future of the profession, specifically for those young kids coming into the field. And it's about the patients, and we are all patients. Never forget that, all patients. So I would say, we try to not let the noise of typical organized dentistry get in our ears. We've moved beyond it. It used to bother us a lot. In our state, they're the worst. Mass Dental Society. It's like, they have so much animosity towards us. It's ridiculous. They don't let their board of trustees be on my Facebook page about, really ridiculous. It used to be bothersome. Now we don't care. We're just doing us, moving ahead. We know that we have a good mission in mind and that none of it is to benefit us. All of the dentists on our board, there's 9 of us. this is all volunteer. We spend countless hours. We spend a lot of our time. We are not trying to make 1 cent. And almost every other group out there, whatever they're doing through Facebook or whatever, they're all trying to make a profit. Like it's a business for them. This is not a business. It's not for profit. And it's truly to try to save the profession.
Kristine, the first symposium in DC this year was an overwhelming success, and you had, I mean, I was blown away, and you had unique exhibitors there who got time with the attendees. I'm sure you're
They
doing
loved
this.
it. They're all coming back. They loved it. They said the exhibitors and the attendees were all like, we can't believe this. We had no idea that it was going to be so great. I get texts every day from our speakers, from, if Bob Spiel from Just Say No to the DSO, he and I are like buddies now, and Nate, the other host, and we're on the same mindset. I've been on that podcast. It's if you haven't listened to it, listeners of this one, you want to listen to it. 3 seasons strong. It's excellent, very informative, just like this podcast will be. And again, we are not here to bash our fellow colleagues. Like that's not what it's about. But they have no problem being loud and trying to pull in their colleagues because they might make some money off of it if they bring someone into the DSO they've sold to, right?
Sure.
We're not making any money. I can't be more clear than that.
Oh, you're clear. No, it's great. And I mean, we could have you on for hours and talk here.
Like to talk.
But we promised our audience at Be Micro, and I encourage people to check out the Alliance of Independent Dentists, your Facebook page. And this is where I want to close with you, Kristine. Is there a profile? Yeah, you said it. 80% of dentists are independent dentists in the U.S. here. Is there a profile? Because I know you have hundreds and hundreds of dues-paying members who get education, who get mentorship, who get communication, who get guides and speakers, etc. But your social media following is huge, in the thousands.
We're building it, we want more though. We really want more.
And that's great. But is there a profile? Is it a younger dentist? Is it a mid-career dentist? Is it an aging dentist?
It's for everybody. It's for everybody. It's for my generation who is at the point that they may be getting ready to retire in the next 5 or 10 years, so they can make the right decision of how to transition out. It's for the 40-year-old dentists who are thinking, oh, I should just sell. I can't stand management. It's for the 30-year-olds who are starting out their career. And it's definitely for the dental students, so they understand the potential future that they could have. And that independent private practice is very fulfilling. So very. And if you ever want me on another podcast, I could speak to, becoming insurance independent. That's a good topic too.
That's a great topic. Yeah, these all weave together too. They all weave together, and I think we should definitely have you back because there's so many avenues to go down with this, and
oh my God, just pediatric dentistry. We haven't even touched. Why are there so few of you out there?
I feel like there's plenty of us, but that's because I'm in a very saturated area. Let me tell you this: the website for the Alliance is www.dentistalliance.org. I would love all dentists to check it out, to become a paid member. It's $325 a year. You go out and have a couple dinners for this. And all that money is to support this educational mission and to get the public educated. We will have a listserv that will be the place for people in the public to search out independent dentists so they know who's independent. But we need dues paying members to have the money to do these things. We're doing as much as we can, on a low budget. So that's why we need paid members, for no other reason, just to make the mission stronger. Power in numbers. Okay. Yeah.
Power in numbers. Yeah. Well, thanks for being a guest. We appreciate your insight.
Amazing.
And obviously, this is a huge, it's probably the biggest, kind of thing in dentistry right now. The topic that is, there's two sides of it, and where am I, where should I go, what should I be doing? And it's usually digging deeper and understanding kind of the difference or sort of the benefits of it, which certainly helps. And you've done a great job over this 10-minute podcast, which is now 19 minutes, explaining it. And we want to have you back for another one. So with that, I'll let Mike wrap it up.
Yeah, just next time, we'd like you to be a little more passionate.
Yes, please.
I wish I had 1/10 of your passion, Kristine. Hey, thanks for being on the podcast. This one's going to go bonkers, I have a feeling. And yeah, we're not afraid to talk about real issues here. Thank you for being so transparent.
Yeah.
And that's where your passion is most valued. You're doing great work. Guys, check out
Keep
the
it up.
Alliance of Independent Dentists. Like, subscribe, and we'll have Kristine back. Thank you, my dear.
Thanks,
You are
Kristine.
awesome.